Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is the place to be for education about asexuality, so hit that bell icon so you never miss an episode after you've subscribed. So today we're going to be discussing the pros and cons of dating a dominant woman. Should you date a dominant woman or not? So some guys are submissive. They prefer a more dominant woman to date or to be in a relationship with. And often dominant women can attract guys who are looking for the characteristics and traits of a dominant woman. Sometimes guys get relief from being with a dominant woman because they have to make less decisions for themselves. They have to have less emphasis on themselves of driving the relationship forward. There's less leadership on their part, less decision making on their part, and there's less need to do all the time. So it depends on the level of dominance of the woman and whether you're talking in terms of the relationship in general, in terms of characteristic traits, or in terms of the bedroom. As this is an asexual channel, the majority of people who watch it, I'm guessing, are asexual and don't want sex. But there are some asexuals that are still into BDSM stuff, whether that involves sex or not. They are often into non-penetrative BDSM stuff. And so some guys who are asexual like a dominant female asexual person in a BDSM sense. So this could be like a spanking scenario where the woman's doing the spanking and the guy is tied up, for example, but naked, but she doesn't have sex with him. It could be a number of scenarios in which the female is dominating the guy without having sex. Even some heterosexual guys get turned on by a woman being really dominant in the bedroom, doing lots of stuff to him without actually having the sex. It kind of makes him feel like she's even more dominant by not giving herself to him in that way, if you understand what I mean. I'm not personally into BDSM. It might interest you to know that I don't class myself as submissive at all, but I did a test online and it came out that I was submissive. So that is really strange for me. Okay. So I think it's difficult sometimes to differentiate between a strong woman and a dominant woman. I kind of think these are interlinked, but they can be separate. There are good traits to a dominant woman and there are bad traits to a dominant woman, and every woman's different. So some women could display really difficult, bad traits of dominance, whereas another woman could display much better traits of dominance and be good person. So I can only go by some of the experiences that I've encountered, and I'm not into women, but I have a friend who I hardly speak to anymore, but it's not because I don't like them, it's because they've moved and, they've got a life partner and everything of their own over it where they've moved to. But this person had back then a dominant female personality. I would say. I wouldn't say they were completely dominant, but I would say they've had strong characteristics of domination. Some of them were probably very good and some of them not so good. So if I go through some of them, because I'm trying to base this on my experience of a dominant woman and trying to give people advice on this channel about what it would be like in that scenario to be with that type of person. But obviously, the world is huge. There's a vast array of experiences, and everyone's experience and characteristic traits is different. So you would need to get to know the individual person, the individual woman, and find out how she displays her dominance, how she is dominant, and what that would look like in a possible relationship or dating scenario. So if you are thinking about getting into a relationship with a dominant woman, this is the type of stuff you need to know. So this particular person, who I cannot name obviously, I will tell you some of the good and not so good. So in terms of dominance, a woman in general as well who's dominant, she tends to be more of a leader than a follower. doesn't like to be told what to do, right? This is a very strong characteristic trait. I personally do not like being told what to do. If I get a guy in my inbox telling me how to run my business and do things I've done for years, it's a bit like effing off, spring to mind, right? Because I won't tolerate it. So I think they've got a much more tolerant threshold, and they will not tolerate any nonsense. They will not tolerate being told what to do. They will not like being told what to do, and especially not by strangers. If a guy wants to tell a woman who's dominant something, he'll have to do it in a specific way, such as he would have to understand her first of all, understand this current situation, and only really if she's looking for advice from him would it be best to give it. If he's got something to say, he'd have to say something like, "Can I make a suggestion?" But obviously, if you're making a suggestion about something that she knows more of than you do, that is not a good thing. So basically, she's usually a leader, knows what she wants in her life, knows what she likes and doesn't like. She doesn't like to be messed around. She doesn't like to be played games with. She doesn't like her emotions messed with. Some women who are dominant can also be aggressive in nature, so that if you do upset them by anything you say or what you behave like, they can then get aggressive back. They can get very mouthy back. This is a bad dominance, more of a toxic, not so good dominance. They can get very mouthy back. They can get very aggressive, and they could shout at the guy or swear at him. There's women who are very dominant who can drink guys under the table in terms of like alcohol. There's some women that are dominant that would, push a guy out the way, that would think they're more powerful than him, that he's required to buy her drinks all the time. He's required to pay stuff for her when she goes out all the time and stuff like this. Obviously, some guys like, um, the woman being powerful and strong and, paying for stuff. He kind of feels like, yeah, he should be paying for it. And sometimes that can put a woman's value up in his mind, that she's actually demanding, if you like, that she doesn't pay for any drinks when we're on dates, her and him. He should be paying for dates. He should be paying for taxis. He should be paying for everything, right? So I think a female-led dominant character would be more like expecting the guy to pay for things. However, you do get some women in the 21st century that are like, do not hold the door open for me. Do not like, open my coat for me. Do not take the seat to get me to sit down. I can do that myself. I'm very independent. I don't need you telling me what to do or doing stuff for me. And they can be dominant in that way, right? So you've got to understand that different women display characteristics of dominance in different ways. Some can be bossy, genuinely bossy. Some can be forthright. Some can be demanding. Some can be expecting things of guys a lot. I think having expectations of guys is a fine thing, but it depends what you're expecting him to do and how you're treating him. I think a woman who's got more of a dominant role would be assertive, a lot more boundary driven. She would tell a guy no if she doesn't want to have sex with him. If she doesn't want to do anything that he wants to do, she would say no. She wouldn't be scared of saying stuff in front of his friends. She'd be very outspoken. She'd probably be the decision maker in the relationship, and she would probably be a leader in her own life, have her own place, have her own car, have her own business, whatever, and be very forthright. Know what she wants, say what she means, mean what she says, be very direct, be very bold, right? But you can get dominant women in jobs, some that just have this kind of masculine energy, very strong, very driven, very ambitious, want to get up in the company, and stays behind at night, does overtime, shows her bosses like what she's made of, good at negotiation, and all these good qualities. But you can also get dominant women in the workplace that literally like to think they're better than anyone else, entitled to position that's above them without even working for it, doesn't like people who are younger than her being like in leadership roles. She thinks she should be above them because of their age and stuff like this. I don't like this type of woman. I've come across this type of woman who like treats guys who are younger than her, for example, about 25 years old, who's her supervisor, she treats them like scum. Like, oh, I'm older than you, so I know more than you, so you shouldn't be telling me what to do. So you can get some dominant, controlling, toxic women. And then you can get some women who are dominant in the sense they like to tell a guy how they like, their life, how they like sex if they're into sex. You can get dominant women in the bedroom that like to, be on top of the guy, tie him up if they're into BDSM, demand sex, or tell a guy when she wants sex, direct a guy as to where she wants her body touched, direct a guy to where she wants him to lick her, kiss her, suck her, and all the rest of it. I don't think there's anything wrong with a female telling a guy what she likes sexually. I think that's very important. Although I'm asexual, when I've had sex in the past, I used to tell a guy exactly what I liked to be done and what I didn't like. And if there was anything I didn't like, I would just stop. Maybe that's a more dominant side coming out of my character. But I just thought I was a normal, what most women do. But it seems like a lot of women are not assertive in that way. They can't tell a guy no, they can't tell a guy when to stop. Obviously, some guys don't stop, they just do what the hell they want. I get that. I've had guys do stuff with, that's not been consensual, which is sexual abuse, basically. But that's not why I'm asexual. I've had good sex after that experience. And so I'm still used to telling a guy like what I like, what I don't like. I'm very strict with guys in nightclubs where they can and can't touch. And I won't do anything I don't want to do and anything I don't like. Obviously, if a guy, in the past, a guy's done stuff. Well, I stopped a guy doing some stuff, and the other guy, I was totally taken by surprise. So, yeah, you can't, if a guy is physically stronger than you and you're in that type of situation, there's not much you can do about it, right? So you just have to get yourself better from the experience, right? But moving on from that, in general, like with my last long-term relationship, I would say no. If I didn't want sex, I would stop in the middle of it, and I wouldn't care whether he was like whatever stage he was at. And I would say if I don't want to do something, I think women who are dominant, they speak their mind without fear. They can tell a guy their needs, they can explain what they want, they can be forthright, be directional. And sometimes it's really good for guys. The pros of being with a woman like that, a girl like that, is she knows what she wants, so you know where you stand with her. She's not going to play games with you. She's not going to play your games with your heart. She's not going to mess you around. You're going to know exactly where you stand with her. And you either accept her for who she is or you don't be with her, usually, is the scenario. But some dominant women do have like a don't mess with me type of attitude. And obviously that can be quite frightening for some guys if she's got like a don't mess with me type of attitude. Some guys like that, because they're strong in themselves and they're confident, and they like that in a woman because they like the confidence. But other guys get scared by it. So I think you've got to assess the situation accordingly. you know so women who are dominant tend to be, I would say, intellectual. They have a lot of knowledge, but it's whether they use that in the right way or not for good. Also, some dominant women tell the guy what to wear, what to do, and stuff like that. I mean, I personally think that's too dominant. I don't think that's healthy dominance. But some guys like to relinquish control. They want a woman to be able to say what to wear, what to do, how to act, where to go. Some guys like are very, very submissive, and they like a woman to take charge and control of the life between them because it's less pressure on them. For years, guys have felt a lot of pressure on them to be performing in the bedroom the way is expected, to be bringing in money and be the sole breadwinner, to be able to give women stuff like pay for a woman's house, pay for a woman's car, give her this, that, and the other. By having a dominant woman, he's relieved of those societal expectations. He's relieved of those duties, if you like. It allows him to not have to think so much. It allows him to not have to make as many decisions. And so therefore it can be less stressful for him that someone else is like making the decisions for him. Some guys really love a dominant woman where she's making the decisions about where they go, where where they go on dates, where they go on holiday, who they hang around with, what time they go out, you know, what they do with their life. And some guys just really love the relief of losing that control because they don't want to have to make the decisions. They can be indecisive, some guys, and they just want someone to take charge and control. And it's like a relief for them. It's like, a dominant woman will have a sense of accountability usually and responsibility if she's a healthy dominant woman. She'll be, if she's in charge of the relationship, if you like, and in charge of what goes on in it, she'll take responsibility and accountability for it if something goes wrong. Obviously, if the guy doesn't make those decisions, it's not his responsibility. So he's given more responsibility to the dominant woman. Women who are not dominant wouldn't like all that responsibility. They think it's too much. But a dominant woman usually likes to be more in control of her environment, the people she's in relationships or friendships with, and by her making the decisions, she's more in control of that. So if she's with a guy who's more submissive and doesn't like to make decisions and wants a woman to make those decisions, it helps her because she feels in control. She feels like she's a leader and it empowers her. And she feels like she loves that sense of authority, that sense of agency, whereas a guy can really feel free to be just existing on his own, as an entity without having to worry about all the decision making. So it can be freeing for both of them. If a woman's naturally dominant and she likes to have agency and control over her environment and situations, and the guy likes to give up control and doesn't like to make decisions, that can work as really good as a team in a relationship. But, if a woman asks a guy anything like that, she'd expect him to tell her the answer. She wouldn't want stuff kept from her. She would expect him to be very open, very honest, tell her things exactly like it is. And, there could be a lot of people pleasing in it. So, the guy, if he really gets a kick out of pleasing a dominant woman, then it might be a very healthy relationship for him because it might make him feel very fulfilled and satisfied that he's doing what pleases his woman and he knows exactly what pleases her because she's not scared to tell him. She's very directional, very strong, very bold, very brave, tells it exactly like it is, and he's got direct instructions to follow. He's not got to think, what do I do next, and stumble in life. He's very clear. This is why a lot of guys, younger guys, tend to go for older women, in my opinion, is they like the more stronger, dominant character who's driven by herself, who's self-driven, if you like, self-independent, ambitious, and who's directional in her own life and knows what she wants. And she's like on a mission to succeed, and she's empowered to be herself, and she's authentic and real and raw. you know and this can be so good, and he can just think, oh my gosh, it's so much more easier being in a relationship with this type of woman than having to, for example, figure it all out myself, or be the leader and I don't really know what I'm doing. I haven't got the experience. That's why, like I said, a lot of guys love older women. A lot of guys love older women for sex, though, because a lot of women who are older know exactly what they want in terms of sex. They know how they want to be touched, where they want to be touched. They know what turns a guy on. It's easy for them to turn a guy on. It's easy for them to know what a guy wants sexually. It's easy for her to please him if she wants, but it's easier to get what she wants in that way because she doesn't give an F, to be honest. And a lot of the time with a dominant woman, she tends to be older and she doesn't care what society thinks because she's confident in herself. She doesn't look to other people to validate her. She validates herself. She loves herself and she values herself and values her self-worth. And this is very different from a girl who's submissive, who does what the guy wants, who basically, if he says, cook my food, you know. But you have to understand a dominant woman might not like cooking and cleaning and all the housework. So you get, you know, some dominant women do like housey stuff, but there's some dominant women that don't like housework, right? So you'd be expected to do more of that usually, or, you know, get someone in for that person, maybe someone who's like does cleaning and housework and who actually does the cooking. But you'd probably be more expected to do the cooking yourself and housework chores and things yourself because she wouldn't do it. Why should she? She knows her power and her worth. She's not going to want to like clean up after a man, right? Because that's just an inconvenience to her. So I think you have to take each woman individual. The person I knew who's dominant, she was very dominant in the relationship, but she was dominant in the kitchen as well. So she loved to cook. And, you know, it's a case of whatever she cooks, she expects people to eat and enjoy it and like it. And she might spend hours in the kitchen cooking. And she prefers her food to anyone else cooking it. So a dominant woman can be like that if she likes cooking. It can be like, my food's the best, better than any restaurant, better than eating out, better than any food you can cook. So you kind of feel like superior to her. Like, doesn't matter what you cook, it's never going to be good enough for her. So you let her do that. Right. And that can be the same in different scenarios, that whatever you do, you don't feel is good enough for her. Now, if she's happy to take control of all those things that you don't feel you could do any better with, and she's better at it than you, then that's fair enough. But if the fact that she's better than at a lot of things than you, or she thinks she's better at a lot of things than you, and she wants to lead that part of the relationship, but you feel underconfident, but you feel undermined and even belittled, or that you haven't got a sense of place or a sense of worth because she's always doing things for you or deciding everything for you, that can lower your self-esteem and be toxic for you. So you've got to decide, you know, what parts of a dominant woman do you like? Do you like all the parts? Do you like relinquishing all control and, you know, letting her have her say in her way and do what you want within what she wants? Or do you just want to do what you want without being told what to do, without her making decisions, without her controlling the relationship? You know, a dominant woman tends to prefer to be more in control of the relationship and the situation. So I think you've got to decide for yourself what type of personality you want, you know? But basically, you know, a lot of women prefer, if I read some of Quora, like, I don't know if you've ever gone on Quora, Quora, there's a load of forums on there, and they specifically talk about dominant women. And in here, someone's written about dominant women. And they've said that dominant females often step outside traditional gender roles, which I think is very true. Historically, women were expected to be submissive, supportive, and secondary to the aspirations and whims of men. And women who are dominant are usually very ambitious, and they do want the guy to support them in their career as well. You know, they at least want equality in that way, if not some more support for her career, if she's the one that's earning more money or got more prestige, for example. However, as society progressed, these norms have been challenged and dominant women have become more visible in all areas of life, from politics to business to the arts. Dominant women often exhibit assertiveness, confidence, and an intrinsic motivation to take charge. Their dominance is not always about assertiveness in a forceful sense, though. Sometimes it's about being unapologetically ambitious, sure of their opinions, or simply not shying away from leadership roles. In my personal my personal experience in life, from my point of view, I like being unapologetically, authentically me. I will not be told what to do by any guy. I get guys in my inbox regularly telling me what to do with my YouTube channel and like, oh, you're not SEOing it properly and all the rest of the bullshit they keep telling me. And I'm like, I'm not interested. I got a guy like trying to sell me his YouTube services when he can't even spell YouTube coming through on my Facebook business page, who left a comment on this channel. I'm like, really? You can't even spell YouTube properly, and you're telling me that you're a big ad agency for YouTube and you're an expert. Not an expert if you can't even spell YouTube right. And I'm not worried about having the perfect SEO keywords on every single video. I want to put content out there for my viewers, right? If I worried about SEO every 5 minutes of the day, I wouldn't get half the content I've got out on my channel. Going back, so I don't like being told what to do. I will not be told what to do. It really turns me off when a guy does that. And especially when he's like these people come on and they're like, oh, well, you haven't, there's no social footprint of your videos, which is absolute BS because I share all my videos across all my social media, particularly across Instagram and across my Facebook pages. Some of it goes on Twitter, not all, but I'm always sharing a lot of my videos. I've got special tools that allow me to instantly share stuff. So they just don't know. They haven't even watched my channel, and they're like, oh, views and subscribers. Do you know, like, I've got over 730,000 views. That's more than a lot of like prestigious channels have got. I'm proud of this channel. So that's a prime example of me not liking being told what to do. And, find it very insulting when a guy thinks he knows better than me how to run my own channel. Right? Their psychological, so on Quora, this person's saying the psychological profile traits of a dominant woman may include high self-esteem. They believe in their worth and capabilities, which propels them into leadership positions and roles of authority. Emotional intelligence, they can read the room, influence others, and navigate complex social landscapes. Resilience, dominant females are often tenacious, bouncing back from setbacks and using challenges as fuel for growth. I would really say that a dominant female does really have resilience, strength, courage, will bounce back from both emotional setbacks and physical setbacks, and will keep steaming ahead no matter what. Very determined to succeed. Going back to Cora, strategic thinking. They tend to plan methodically. I'm a methodical planner. I can't even say that. Seeing steps ahead and often making savvy, calculated decisions. I do tend to be well organized. I tend to plan. If I go away on trips, I plan them months in advance. Social acumen. Despite stereotypes, dominant females often possess the ability to forge alliances, network efficiently, and persuade effectively. And again, I think it depends what type of dominant woman. I mean, I know there's some dominant women, and some dominant women, they're not very emotionally sensitive. They're not very, how can I put it? They haven't got tact and diplomacy, some dominant women I know. They're kind of less emotional and more withdrawn. So again, I think it just depends what type of dominant woman you go for. If you've got a dominant woman who's very empathetic and sympathetic, but still very much knows her own mind, knows what she wants, is bold, assertive, not afraid to tell you what she wants and what she wants done in the relationship, or not afraid of expressing the needs. That's good if she's kind, caring as well. But if you end up with a dominant woman who literally like won't let you finish your sentences, snaps at things she doesn't like, is quick to respond in a short-tempered way to requests. You can't really connect with that person on a deep emotional level when she's like that, because it's kind of like she's standoffish, and whatever she says goes, no matter what. It's like your opinion doesn't matter. Your thoughts and feelings don't matter. She'll have the final word. She'll have the final say, and she thinks she's always right. That is quite toxic, I think, and it makes it difficult to have a relationship, healthy one, with that type of person, to be emotionally close to them. Because you feel like she's a bit like a barking dog. You go near her and she's like, ah, ow, ow. I've seen that type of dominant woman. I've seen it in business, and it makes them really unapproachable. And, you don't want to get on the wrong side of them. But if you do, you kind of have to stick up for yourself. And it takes another dominant woman to stick up to that type of woman. Try and get two dominant women in a room. It's not a good idea, actually. Two dominant women in a room does not usually work. So if you have a dominant man and a dominant woman, that doesn't usually work either, because the man wants to tell the woman what to do, expects her to be submissive to him, expects her to be under his thumb, under his rule, do what he says, dress a certain way he wants, do what he wants in the bedroom, be told what to do. And a dominant woman would just not have any of that. She'd be like, don't you tell me what to do. I'll do whatever I want. F you type attitude. So I've seen the aggressive, like, dominant side of a woman, where it's like, if a guy messes with her, she'll take revenge on him. If a guy doesn't behave in the way she wants, she'll take, like, revenge on him. She'll even, like, some women who are dominant will even physically fight with a guy, and she'll probably win as well. And she might get boisterous, and she might start pulling him and whatever, and shouting at him. So there's some bad sides to dominant women if they're an unhealthy dominant woman and they haven't learned to control their dominance. So I think you've got to take every individual on their own merits, and go back to core again. It said this person said it's essential to note that dominance is not synonymous with bossiness or insensitivity. Dominant females can be empathetic and caring, capable of leading with both strength and kindness. And let's not overlook that the expression of dominance is context dependent. A woman might be dominant in her professional life, but prefer a more equal or even submissive role in personal relationships, or vice versa. So yeah, this can be true. So you might find that a woman is fairly submissive in everyday life, like maybe she answers to a supervisor and management in an office role, for example, but at home she likes to be more dominant. You see this type of thing with guys, like, who have big, high flying, high powered jobs, who are actually married, and they hire, for example, a dominant prostitute. I don't like this, but it does happen. And they will hire, like, a woman who's dominant in their bedroom because they get bored of their 9 to 5 job, basically. And some of them get bored of their wives, because they want a dominant woman when they come home, because they want excitement in their life, and they want, or they want a woman who's kind of like dominant but submissive at the same time, so they can want a woman who knows what she wants sexually, and but she'll also act like the maid to him as well. So she's like playing dominant, submissive roles at the same time. She might be on top of him, but with a maid outfit. I'm not really into this stuff. Personally, sex repulsed asexual for me, but you can get kind of juxtapositions where, you can get a guy who likes a female who's got dominance in certain areas of their life, but submission in other areas. So, you might find a guy loves a woman to dominate him in the relationship, but he likes her to be submissive in the home, if that makes sense. So, for example, in the case where a woman likes to cook, clean, do housework, he, expects her to do that, and he wants her to do that, and will tell her what to do in the housework department. But when it comes to sexual relations, she'll dominate him. Or when it comes to like social outings, she'll dominate him and stuff like that. So, you've got to find out what the individual people in that relationship like. What if you're like a dominant female, you need to know exactly what type of dominant female you want, what type of role she should play. As it says here on Quora, dominant females often face a double-edged sword of perception. They are admired for their strength and capabilities, but are sometimes subjected to negative stereotypes or judgments that a man in a comparable position would likely avoid. Words like bossy, bitchy, or unfeminine are unfairly levied at women who assert themselves. The psychology of a dominant female isn't fundamentally different from that of a dominant male. It's about a blend of personality characteristics, individual willpower, and a set of developed skills that enables a person to lead, influence, and control their environment. Where things diverge, though, is in the societal lens through which we view such dominance. And it's worth mentioning that this lens is perpetually changing, with increasing acceptance and celebration of powerful women shaping the fabric of modern culture. So while there is certainly a set of traits that might define a dominant female, the psychology is nuanced and as varied as the individuals themselves. It's not cut and dried because people, well, we're about as complex as it gets. And I would really agree with that. It's individual, isn't it? You know what I mean? You can't pin everyone into a tight little box. I would say I'm not a submissive person, but like I said, I did a test and it came out that I was submissive, which I was shocked by. But I don't like to control a guy. I do like to be in control of my life, my environment, my situations that I can control as much as possible. I prefer to have as much control as possible over my life. And the problem is when I get into a relationship with a guy, obviously I've got to take him and his life into consideration as well. I think that's one thing I don't actually like about a relationship. And I think that's just because I haven't found the right guy yet. Because like when you're in a relationship with someone, you can't control them, obviously. You shouldn't want to, unless you're really dominant in that way and controlling, and he likes that. Um, but at the same time, it's kind of disconcerting if you've got someone who's got a very different life to you, or you don't really know that well. I think over time, if you've got to know the person a lot and you're like best friends before you get into a relationship, I think that's the best way to be, because hopefully by then you both kind of know each other a lot, that you're comfortable with each other's lives and lifestyle, that you can kind of fit into each other's lives and lifestyle. And so therefore there's a degree of control in the sense that you know what's going on. Control to me is more to do with being informed and up to date and involved in that person's life, even if you don't live together. So that gives a greater sense of control, if you know what I mean, in your own life, if you know what's going on in the other person's life, because you're sharing life with them. But I personally, as a woman who's not submissive, I would say I'm not submissive, do not like to be told what to do by a guy, do not like to be bossed around by a guy, do not like to be told what to wear, do not like to be told to wear makeup. If a guy tells me to wear makeup, it F's me off and I really don't want him near me. If a guy doesn't think I look beautiful without makeup, well, he's not my guy, to be honest, because I'm just not interested in that. I find it insulting. I find it insulting that a guy thinks that a woman has to wear makeup just to look better for him. It's disgusting. I get it. Better for him. He should accept of who she is. And, I like being a leader in my own life. I like living on my own. I like doing what I want when I want. That's why I don't totally know if a relationship's for me. Because, unless I found a guy who is very, very, very honest and trustworthy, and who I felt was compatible with me in the lifestyle and what I want, and could make me feel really, really secure and happy and be very stable for me, and, possess certain qualities, I think I'm better off on my own. So far I haven't met a guy that's made me feel really kind of at ease. I can ask him anything and everything. Nothing's off limits in a romantic sense. My best friend, I feel I can talk to about anything pretty much. But in a romantic sense, I haven't met the guy who's completely open and honest about anything and everything, and who, is willing to have in-depth conversation with nothing being off limits, and, happy to answer any questions I have, and who is really knowing what he wants, exactly what he wants, and being very direct and honest and open, I haven't met that type of guy yet, and because I do have anxiety, I need to be with a guy who knows exactly what he wants in life and is very, very defined in his life. And that is hard when you like younger guys like I do, because a lot of younger guys, they might want completely different things to you or don't know what the hell they want. And that makes dating relationships so much more difficult, I want a guy who is completely open and honest with me and doesn't hold anything back, And, I want a guy who is okay with a female who's more of a leader in her own life, particularly. And I do like a guy to look up to me to a certain extent, not look up to me as in I'm superior to him, just look up to me out of like respect and admiration for what I do in my work, for example. But I would still respect him and what he's doing, whether he's studying or working or both. And I do like admiration in a relationship, and I do like to have things a certain way in my life. Like, I prefer living on my own because I like food shopping got in a certain way. I like my bedding in a certain way. I like my lifestyle in a certain way. I like going to sleep at a certain time. I like dressing in certain clothes for different occasions. I like, things set ways. And I think a woman who's more dominant would have more of her own set ways of doing things and want to stick to them, especially if they're effective for her and work really well. I think there's going to be less flexibility there. So again, you have to consider that if you're a guy who really likes a lot of flexibility, if you like just to have a laugh, if you're more laid back and casual, happy-go-lucky type of guy, I don't think a dominant woman would suit you, not unless that's what you needed in your life to bring some passion and excitement and a sense of steadiness and stability in your life. Maybe you're too happy-go-lucky and too casual, and actually being with a dominant woman would suit you because it'd bring you into line in that way. Maybe that's the type of woman you'd actually need, because otherwise you just, you're just playing around, if you know what I mean. Whereas maybe a woman who's more of a leadership, knows what she wants, won't accept your shit, and being messed around, maybe that's exactly what you do want. The opposite of probably what you think you want. So, it might work really well, but she'd have to be very confident in herself and not doubtful and stuff. I think I have a level and degree of confidence, and I'm very assertive and stuff, but I also do have another side to me, I guess, that is a little bit more unsure in terms of relationships, you know? So I do need more reassurance in that way, which isn't a dominant trait. I said dominant woman doesn't really need reassurance. She's fully in control, and if something doesn't work for her, she'll let the guy know and that's it. She doesn't really need reassurance. She knows what she's doing and she's completely confident in that. And she doesn't, need approval or validation. You know what I mean? Whereas I think, like with me, I think I do need reassurance a bit more. I do need a degree of reassurance, and to know that person feels a certain way about me and verbalizes that is very important. So I think that's why I'm not a dominant woman, because I think there's areas that I'm not as confident in as some other women would be. And, I don't want to hurt a guy's feelings. Whereas I think some dominant women, they won't care so much about a guy's feelings. You know? But having said that, like I'm not afraid to tell a guy the truth, even if it does hurt his feelings, but I don't want to hurt his feelings, if you know what I mean. I have a degree of care about him like that, and protection. So I guess a dominant woman might feel more protective because she's taken on the role of the guy sometimes. Like, the guy is traditionally meant to be the protector, the security giver, whereas I do find myself being a protective role. And, like, if a guy's unsure or unstable a bit, like, if he's not sure about certain things, or whether, for example, a date would be good with me, I'll reassure him that he'll be fine with me. I'll take care of him. So it's kind of like role reversal. Usually the guy should take care of the girl and put her mind at ease, but usually with me it's the opposite way around. If I have a video date with a guy and he's unsure, he's nervous or something, I'll say, it's going to be fine. I'll look after you. You're going to have a great time with me. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of more of a leadership dominant type of role. But, it is a bit disconcerting if a guy is saying, I'm nervous, but it depends on the way he's saying it. If he's saying he's nervous, but he still displays signs of strength and still wants to talk to you and still makes it clear, I'm really looking forward to the video date. A little bit nervous, to be expected, because, like, it's the first time we're going to see each other, but I'm so excited. If that's the way he's saying, it's great. But if he's like, I'm nervous, and it's kind of like he's not saying much more to me, that's a bad sign. So anyway, I think you've got to take everyone on their own merits and decide, like, what type of dominance do you want in a woman? How dominant do you want her to be? Do you just want her to be dominant in certain areas of your relationship and her life and your life? Or do you just want a full-on dominant woman where you don't really have to make any decisions? You're happy to do, like, whatever she wants you to do. Some guys do like being more of a slave to women, or a maid to a woman. Or that, like, they like, like a woman totally taking charge and doing whatever in all aspects of his life. And he likes being completely submissive and having a woman tell him what to do all the time. I don't think I could handle that personally. I think, am I actually having a relationship with him, or am I just having a relationship with myself? Because if all I'm doing is telling him what to do, I may as well just not bother being in a relationship. It's a lot easier to not have to worry about telling another person what to do and just do things myself. What's the point? So I personally wouldn't like to be in a relationship where I'm completely dominant, telling a guy what to do and stuff. It'd be too much for me. Because I have had guys approaching me because they say they're like a dominant woman. I guess they probably see from my profile and bio, because I know exactly what I want, I don't mince my words, that that they probably think I'm really dominant. And some of them are like, they're looking for a dominant woman and they're submissive, but they're too submissive for me. You know what I mean? It's like they're not even saying what their needs are. They're not even saying what they want. They're not even saying much about themselves or how a relationship would be. And I need a guy who's into healthy communication, who's into talking about his own needs, not just my needs, who's into working together as a team. I don't want the whole relationship to be on me and me responsible for it. I may as well just be responsible for myself. It's a lot less stress and a lot less hassle. Do you know what I mean? Like, having to take care of another person, that's kind of what it's like for me. It'd be like taking care of another person all the time in a more parental role, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but that would be kind of weird and yucky. No, I don't want to be a parent. I'm not into mummy and daddy stuff. Um, you know what I mean? So for me personally, I don't think it'll work out. I mean, I have had people approach me for dominant stuff and I just can't do it. A guy expects you to do certain things if you're an actual dominatrix, and I just can't be that type of person because I don't want to control a guy. And I do like a guy who's assertive and pursues me. Like, I don't want to be pursuing him all the time, like, because it's just boring that way, isn't it? It's just like, are you interested in me or not? If I'm doing all the work, it feels one-sided and it feels like I should just leave that scenario because it's just too much work and it's too much hassle. So I don't think I'd be good at dominating. And I've seen some, I'm not into BDSM stuff, but I've had to do some research for my Asexual Guide to Sex book that I need to finish editing to publish, and there are dominatrix and they're guys who like to be dominated, but not just by one woman, but by multiple women. It's like they have not just one mistress, they have a lot of mistresses, and I don't personally like that. That's one thing that really puts me off about guys who are submissive, is they'll probably be submissive to a lot of women, not just one. And I don't like that. I'm just looking for one guy who's interested in being with me in a relationship, not multiple other women, and who chooses to be with me. The problem I'm getting is a lot of the guys, for example, on dating sites that I'm talking to, they're not used to talking to many real women. A lot of the women they talk to on there are after their money, after sex, after one night stands, off fake accounts and stuff like that, OnlyFans stuff. And so, you know, I'm one of the few girls that they talk to, but it's not like then that you're being chosen. It's more like it's just convenience. And I don't want that. I'd rather have a guy seeking me out, for example, I don't know, on Instagram or something, when he's got loads of women to choose from, but he would choose me. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not interested in all those. I just want to be with you type thing. You know what I mean? Because if you're just like in someone's inbox and they've not got many to choose from, it means as soon as another woman comes along, a lot of the time they will go off with them or start chatting to them as well. Which is fair enough if they're into dating and stuff, but if you're looking for a serious relationship and that's what they're doing, is no good for you, is it? You know? So I think you have to like really decide what type of female you're after. Do you want a woman who's complete dominant or part dominant or dominant in certain areas of their life that could complement yours? Like if you're a guy who loves doing housework, cooking, cleaning, being subservient in the house basically, and the woman is a career woman and she hates housework and she likes to dominate as in the sense of like be directional as what she wants to do done with the housework before she gets home, for example, you might love that. It might make a perfect match. She gets, you know, to have her home looking spick and span. You get to feel satisfied and fulfilled through making her domestically happy. And she gets to fulfill her career and gets a guy who supports her at home while she's doing her joy and pleasure. You know, that could work really, really well. But again, you need to make sure that you're compatible, that, you know, you're happy for her to give you direction. You know, what worries me in a relationship that's dominated by a female is that, you know, she is seen as controlling and stuff. And I expect some women who are dominant are controlling, and that's what guys love. But unless a guy really loves that, then it could end up being toxic because he could end up saying, "Oh, she was trying to control me." But if he's purposely looking for a woman to control him, then he's going around after they split up or whatever, or even saying to his mates, "Oh, she's trying to control me," can make her sound like toxic when she's just being herself, and he really likes that in private. Do you know what I mean? You got to be very, very careful that people are being honest, and not a lot of people are honest, unfortunately. So just because you're honest doesn't mean to say someone else is being honest. And I think it's important that you spend time with people who are honest and you get someone who's right for you. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful, insightful, and helpful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Get my Asexual Perspectives book. It's a bestseller out on Amazon. This talks about love, life, and sex from an asexual point of view. And it's got 47 different asexual stories in the book. And yeah, subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss an episode. Lots of love and see you soon in the next real live stream. Take care. Bye.